school is currently in HCPSS's FY30 CIP. We have it in the TIF revenue spreadsheet starting in FY30. So we currently have it held in the years that the school system wants it built.
The DRA requires that a certain amount of low-income housing be built in downtown Columbia, correct? A certain percentage. In order for Howard Hughes to move on to the next piece of its process, a certain percentage of housing has to be built and a certain percentage of low-income housing. Did I understand that correctly? I mean, you probably have read it a lot more than I have.
And in addition, and again, Carl, you know better than I do, in addition, it names the projects, including the Arts Center.
Okay, so.
Right, there's 5 of them.
There's 5 projects, but one of the.
Tax credit.
Because one of the projects is a school, correct?
Well, no. So in the DRA, there's 5 low-income housing tax credit residential projects.
As part of the need to meet the affordable housing you were talking about. There are other parts of the program too, but then there are these 5 named tax credit projects that are all, well, 4 of them are a tax credit deal with a county facility.
And the school is a capital project in downtown Columbia that doesn't have any residential, but that the TIF revenue will be used to finance. Okay,
so speaking of the school, again, this is going off, well, it's kind of going off topic, but it is a topic that's of huge concern to me because the school feasibility report for 2020 shows that by 2026, we will be 650 students over capacity in the downtown Columbia schools. So at that point, you're either, and most of that overcapacity will be in the elementary schools. So we'll be looking at a $52 million elementary school in 2026 if we're 650 students over capacity. I just don't see how you can put that many trailers in the elementary schools that the children are now slated to go to, which means that we would need to build a new school. And if we're also putting up a downtown cultural center, a new library in 2025, I don't see how we're going to get the school built. I mean, these are big concerns to somebody who represents District 4.
The school is currently in HCPSS's FY30 CIP. We have it in the TIF revenue spreadsheet starting in FY30. So we currently have it held in the years that the school system wants it built.
So the school system then will be hundreds of students. Our schools in downtown Columbia will be hundreds of students over capacity then for 8 years, 10 years? I mean, if it's not in their CIP until 2030?
The school system, I don't know, that's when the school system has put it in the CIP. And all of the units that we're talking about in downtown Columbia should all be included in their feasibility report because these allocations, these units have all passed schools tests and allocations. So I think we need to verify with DPZ to make sure that these units are included in the feasibility report because I think they are. And again, I think, we fund the school, we're like the receiver and they're the pitcher or the catcher and they're the pitcher. When they want the school, they put the school in the CIP when they want it, and then we match their CIP request to our TIF revenue spreadsheet to make sure that it reflects their request.
I'm just pointing out that right now their school feasibility study also says that by 2026, our downtown schools in Columbia will be 650 students over capacity. That's a lot. And maybe you have to move up the school construction schedule when you see something like that happening. And I don't know how we're going to do that if there isn't sufficient TIF revenue. I don't know whether or not they've also counted the 250 or 300 single-family homes off of Grace Drive that I think are now slated to go to Swansfield. The 57 units in Robinson Overlook, the 250 apartment units at Hickory Ridge Village Center, the brand-new development that is now being proposed for right across the street from Hickory Ridge Development Center, Patuxent Commons, which would have 75 units. I don't know if they've counted all of that in their feasibility study. New Dorsey Overlook, 82 units. Every single one of the kids from those units will also be going to the downtown Columbia schools. That's a lot of students. And if they haven't counted those students, then 650 is a low number. It could be 850.
Well, then wouldn't it fail that if
we
the
should-
allocation's not
I think
out
we
there
should-
yet, it would fail APFO, wouldn't it? Because
I think we should loop in DPZ to this conversation because they'll know, Jeff Brownell will know how many of the downtown Columbia units are currently accounted for in the school system's feasibility study. Because there is certain numbers and types of units that have passed the school's test. He knows it kind of inside and out, I think. So I think I can definitely circle back with him and get some clarity on that issue.
Well, that would be good, but I'm just saying that this is an issue that could involve TIF financing, using that TIF money long before 2030 if this county council continues to approve all of these developments, because it will overcrowd and continue to overcrowd these schools.
and then wouldn't it have?
I remember having a conversation at some point that units coming out of downtown Columbia don't act the same as a unit per se in other more suburban areas, if you will, because there are a higher percentage of 2 bedrooms, 1 bedroom studios, and so when it comes time for producing students, I just want to be careful that we're not using the same exact formula that we may use for units in townhomes and other single-family homes because of the number coming out from downtown Columbia. As I understand, it's lower. I don't really remember offhand. I just remember having a conversation during budget and earlier this year.
These aren't my numbers. These are the school district's numbers.
I think the issue with that is all the market apartments that Howard Hughes has built put very little burden on the schools, but these 5 LIHTC projects are going to be very different, and they are going to generate a higher volume of school-age kids. Karl, for the TIF though, isn't the first set aside of the increment after the primary TIF? Isn't that for the elementary school? So if the county decided that we needed to move that school up, then it would push back the things in the second set aside, Banneker, library, et cetera. Like the school has to be a priority.
Yeah, so there's a specific kind of flow of funds with that tax revenue. So the first is a portion of the debt service on the bonds, right? And then the second, and then kind of to your point, right? The second is like the carve out for the school, and then you have the capital projects, and then you have anything after that going to cover the remaining portion of the debt service. I have that. I purposely kind of gave that generally because I don't want to misspeak because it's a bit more nuanced than that, and I don't want finance or MuniCap to say I have it wrong. But that's the general flow. But there is with some nuances that we can lay out. And then of course, if they're still not after that fourth, if there is still not revenue to pay the debt service, then that's when the special tax would kick in.
Can I say something real quickly on this? So back to my problem here is the risk with the TIF revenue, even more so than the rec and parks and that side of things. And for what we're being provided is we're not going to have enough TIF revenue to pay the debt covering the 2017 issue of 48 million, the 2021 issue of 9.8 million, which is for the garage for this project, I believe, correct?
There's the column in there, that's the garage column. Is it like
Right.
9 point something?
No, that's backed by the special tax district, is that correct? The 9.8 million?
Right, because that's a TIF bond. Right,
Right.
because that's a
Now-
TIF bond.
Now, the rest of it is, we're looking at these other projects, which are just straight out geo bond debt service that we're hoping
Right.
to get additional TIF revenue to pay the debt service for. And so the latest analysis that I'm looking at is we're going to run out of revenue in 2031 if we issue the bonds for the art center in 2021, and then the library starting 2025. There's not going to be enough revenue to carry those bonds, correct?
Well, that's why there's also a lot of other assumptions in that spreadsheet too, that factors into what Craig is pointing out. So Craig is pointing out, like, part of the exercise was kind of back during the budget process in the spring. We were asked, we provided a TIF revenue version, and we were asked, well, this needs to take into account COVID, right? So we then kind of went back and did a fiscal impact study that took into account COVID, that we're working off of now. And kind of what Craig is referring to is, under that post-COVID scenario, if we move forward with, I think we have to move forward with the fire station, the library, the art center, and the school and the traffic improvements by 2031. If we move forward with all these capital projects, we will start to experience deficits by 2031. Now, that some of these capital projects are, unknown, right? Like both the amounts and what the use is. These are just placeholders. And so, part of this exercise with the NCC, in terms of not looking at the TIF revenue for the NCC in isolation, is this is a policy, like a 30-year policy for capital improvements in downtown Columbia, right? And it's important to kind of evaluate each of them in the context of their impact on the others.